ready for the game in Cleveland. I'll be in Cleveland on Sunday, but Luke Jones will be on the backfields all week in Owings Mills. If there's any breaking news, you'll get it first on our WNST text service. That, of course, brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Also welcoming Eric Weddle with us next Tuesday night for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero at Adams Jeep of Aberdeen. But baseball is here day in, day out. The Orioles very much in the pennant race and coming home for 11 straight games against Tampa and the Red Sox. And it's going to be big doings here in the next 10 days to see whether we're going to be playing baseball in October. Seth Gruen is out in the Chicagoland area. He covers all things Major League Baseball for Bleacher Report as their national baseball columnist. They will be playing baseball on the north side of Chicago, but we're wondering where else. Seth, I mean, this is a 10-car pileup in the American League right now. Everybody has a chance, huh?
Yeah, you got it, especially in the division that the Orioles play. It's really compelling and obviously great for baseball.
Yeah, and they're all beating each other up, and every conversation I've began this week with baseball has led with the Yankees, and not just because they're still in the race, but because they are the race. They are the team that everybody thought would be the weakling back in August, and they looked at these Yankees games on the calendar in September and said, 3 with the Yankees, I wish we had 4. It doesn't feel that way anymore. Not only are they a factor in this thing, but I think they're going to be the determining factor over the next 20 games because they play these other teams. If you play well and beat the Yankees, you'll have a chance. If they beat you, Katie, bar the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's well said. And when you look at the job that Joe Girardi and Brian Cashman did this year, I don't think any other general manager combination has had a better 2016. And that's all due respect to the tremendous job Dave Roberts has done in Los Angeles with keeping that team in it despite a record number of players going on the DL. But you consider the fact that Brian Cashman said, we need to be sellers at the deadline. We need to have our eyes on 2017, and we need to give these young guys a chance. And he went out and had the best deadline of any seller. He reinvigorated that system. They now have more top 100 prospects than anyone in baseball. And then Joe Girardi took these young guys and turned them into a contender, essentially. What Gary Sanchez has done has been tremendous. He's obviously the catcher of the future there. And they've got a lot of up-and-coming players. And I got to tell you, man, this team looks like it could replicate what the Tory Yankees did in the late 90s and the early 2000s.
That's not what we want to hear in Baltimore. I mean, don't be bringing us down here in the middle of the pennant race, Seth. Come on, man.
It's reality, but I got to tell you, I love the Orioles, too, this year. You look at the Orioles, and you just want to beg that starting staff. Just give me 5 good innings, because that's a team that obviously has a tremendous bullpen and the ability to hit the long ball. So you don't even need a quality start from those guys. If Dylan Bundy, Giovanni Gallardo can pitch 5 innings, allow 2-3 runs, that's a formula for winning there. I mean, their winning percentage when their pitchers have gone 5 or 6+ innings is tremendous. That's the key for them.
How about that Ubaldo Jimenez? He's something, isn't
he? Yeah. I mean, look, it all boils down to pitching for them. That is the bottom line.
Well, if they get it, I mean, we know they're going to get hitting at some point. The hitting always sorts to turn around. Same thing with Boston and Toronto. It was always about the pitching the last 60 days. In the case of the Orioles, though, it feels like it's getting better. It feels like Jimenez is getting better. Certainly Tillman coming back with 105 pitches. There's plenty of reasons here to believe, yet our fans aren't coming out to support the team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in the Baltimore area. The answer for that, I know generally speaking, it's been an apathetic fan base. But, you look, hey, if you want your team to be able to do some things in the foreign market and be able to make some moves at the deadline, you got to show up because you can't spend 50 cents or you can't spend $1 if you only have 50 cents. So, I'd encourage fans to get out there. And, hey, look, this team is in it, and I expect them to be playing in October.
You do expect them to be playing in October. Well, who's not going to be playing in October? We thought all along it was the Red Sox and the Blue Jays that we were competing with in regard to the wild card. Now all of these teams are nipping at heels, whether it's Detroit and Kansas City, Seattle and Houston. Seattle didn't lose for a week. But beyond all of that, they have easier schedules. I mean, I looked at Detroit's schedule. We played them over the weekend, took 2 out of 3. I looked up, next thing I know, they have 7 with the Twins, 3 with the Atlanta Braves. They're playing the worst teams in Baseball, they have a real chance to go 9-1 in those games. I don't know that the Orioles or the Blue Jays have the ability to go 9-1.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. One of the pitfalls of playing in a great division like that, and it's the most competitive division in baseball, is that you play those teams down the stretch. That's how the Major League Baseball schedule works. You play your division, and while the Orioles, Blue Jays, Yankees, and Red Sox play each other, teams like Detroit have the benefit of playing teams like the Twins. And sure, yeah, that's a major, major factor. But they still have to win those games. I don't think they're a given. We've seen teams sort of choke down the stretch and lose games that they should otherwise win. So I don't necessarily think it means that the Orioles and Blue Jays and Red Sox, that two of those or one of those won't play in October. I've always felt that all three of those teams are going to be there, and I know that the schedule doesn't necessarily favor them, but they're just the better, more talented teams.
He is Seth Gruen at Bleacher Report. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Seth Gruen. That's Gruen, just like my former co-host many, many years ago, Wayne Gruen here, longtime Baltimore legend. You give any of these other teams a little bit of credit, Kansas City hanging in there, certainly Houston and Seattle. Any thought at all that one of those teams will put together some 14-6 or 13-7 flourish to end this thing? Because that's what it's going to take for one of these teams. One of these teams needs to win 13 or 14 of 20. They need to get hot for 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's entirely possible. We've seen it before. I'll say this for Kansas City because I think that's one of the teams that's forefront on people's minds and sort of why they're in this position is, look, they've underwent a lot of injuries. Wade Davis, Mike Moustakas, Alex Gordon. And a lot of times to put together a great season, you need to avoid that injury bug. And I think when you look at some of the teams that are baseball's best, be it the Cubs or the Rangers. Obviously the Prince Fielder had that injury, but he wasn't really a big part of what they were doing. These are teams that have avoided major, major injuries. So, I think that's part of the reason that Kansas City has lagged. As it pertains to the Mariners and the Astros, the Mariners were in a year of transition. I think when they started out the season well, we said, hey, this is a pleasant surprise. I don't expect them to be there. I think that while we couldn't have predicted how it would have transpired and the idea that maybe they'd be in it for a majority of the year, I think the end product will still be the same. And as far as the Astros go, look, we're sitting covering baseball in April and May, and teams are saying it's early. Well, every time one of those teams says it's early and they're losing, it comes back to bite them later in the year. Those games count just as much, and I think you're watching the Astros play catch-up based on the fact that they just didn't play well the first 2 months of the season. So it's really hard to catch up, and I don't necessarily see them doing it.
Do you see the Red Sox as the clear best team in the American League East right now, and not just because they're ahead? We've watched them play this week. We're going to see them a bunch next week. They make me nervous because they look like the team that's going to end this thing, 14-6 or 15-5 down the stretch, because they have the pitching and their hitting has a far less holes in it. They've lost a couple of nasty little 1-0, 2-1, 3-2 kind of games, but they have just been slugging the baseball here lately.
Yeah, I think they're the most talented team in the division right now, no doubt about it. And I think that all three of the teams we've been talking about all year, removing kind of the Yankees from that situation or that scenario, are able to hit the long ball, no doubt about it. But I think when I look at the important elements of winning high-leverage baseball games, and that's what we're really talking about here, as we roll into the final weeks of the season, you talk about having great starting pitching. Well, I wouldn't say any of the three teams has that. You talk about having a great bullpen and being able to hit the home run ball. Well, the Orioles hit the home run ball better than anybody, and the Orioles have an outstanding bullpen. So, they check two of those three boxes. And quite honestly, I think, you may look at the Red Sox and say that they're the more talented team, but when you talk about the elements that are crucial to success in September baseball, the Orioles have it. And I believe that they have as good a chance as any of those three teams to win this division.
Seth Gruen picking up the locals, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead, say that again.
Yeah. And they're my pick.
They're your pick.
They have been for months.
All right, well, there you go. He's picking the locals up here in Baltimore. You can follow him at Bleacher Reporter at Seth Gruen, Gruen. Let's get to the National League. And look, I don't think the Giants are going to catch the Dodgers at this point, but I don't think it really matters for Bruce Bochy, and certainly, where they've come from before as a wild card team, that's just fine and dandy. I am a little concerned about St. Louis and the Mets, quite frankly, nipping at the heels. I don't know which of these teams are going to get in. I feel like it's a foregone conclusion that the Giants will get there, and I think they can make noise, and certainly they have the kind of pitching that can be noisy in October.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely accurate assessment of the National League. I'm quite frankly shocked at how well the Dodgers have played, especially with the absence of Clayton Kershaw. Dave Roberts, to me, it should be the unanimous NL Manager of the Year. All due respect to what Joe Maddon's done this year. He's had talent, and he hasn't really had to undergo the type of adversity that the Dodgers have. You even look at some of their injuries earlier in the year, Alex Wood and Frankie Montas, a power right-handed arm that they were counting on to use in their bullpen, had back-to-back injuries. So, they've been injured and dinged in every which way, and I'm ultimately really, really impressed with what they've done more than any other team in baseball this year.
I think if I would have told you beginning of the year that, Kazmir would have 130 innings and Kershaw would have 120 innings, you'd say, what part of third place do they own?
Right, that's a 500 team. If you tell me that in March, that's a 500 team to me. But obviously, a tremendous job. And look, Corey Seager is an MVP candidate. He won't win it, but obviously has had a tremendous rookie year. But, to your point about the Giants pitching, I completely agree, and this is something I've been saying for months. Madison Bumgarner and Johnny Cueto are as good, if not the best, are as good a 1-2 starting pitching duo as we have in baseball. And when you consider the dynamics of a 7-game series or a 5-game series, look, those two guys are going to pitch potentially 3 games in an NLDS. They're going to pitch 4 in an NLCS. And that's all you need to win each series. So if those guys do their job, the Giants are going to be moving on. And quite honestly, I like those guys better than a lot of potential matchups in the National League.
Buying stock in the Mets or the Cardinals on the other side, Seth?
I'm going to go with the Cardinals just because they've done it before. The organization obviously has a history of finding a way to get into October. Since 2000, they've played playoff baseball more times than not, but that's kind of an unpredictable circumstance. I mean, just sort of the ebb and flow of both those teams' seasons has been really, really up and down. I think the Cardinals struggled early, not having Johnny Peralta. He's an important part of what they do. But when all's said and done, I'll give the nod to the organization that's proven it's been able to consistently do it.
Hope you're enjoying the baseball, man. We're trying to sell some tickets around here, get some people out to the ballpark. It has not been an easy task. I've blogged about that this week. I know that's not a problem on the north side in Chicago.
Certainly not. And I think when you look at all the teams that are in it, it's a lot of these blue blood teams or a lot of these big market teams. And I think it's great for baseball. You talk about the Yankees and Mets being in it, and the Orioles and the Nationals, and even the Blue Jays and the Cubs and the Dodgers and the Giants. Those are teams that draw eyes towards the game, and I think this has been a great, great year for baseball.
It's going to be a great couple of weeks, at least in the American League, with so many cities involved, just as the baseball gods and the commissioner drew it up a couple years ago when he expanded it. Seth, always great visiting with you, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, you got it.
You got it. Seth Gruen, Gruen, out of Bleacher Report, working out of the Chicagoland area, seeing the Cubs and the White Sox and sometimes the Milwaukee Brewers as well. You can follow him out on Twitter as well as at Bleacher Report. You can find me in the Bio Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships at 7 a.m. to your email inbox. It is free of charge and brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Don't forget to get the inspiration at Planet of Triumphs as well. Email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net. I prefer praise to criticism, but I take both equally and have had... That's not even true. I've had a lot more criticism than praise. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live everywhere we are, you are. WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.